Hey there, it's Carly with the Expat Focus podcast. What does it take to become truly location independent? Do you have the qualities needed to thrive working remotely? And what boring but important admin elements do you need to think about if you do intend to work from anywhere? Find out the top countries hiring remotely today and the various ways that you could go about sustaining a location-independent life in my chat with Lucy Jeon. She's an international career expert, the founder of HeyGlobally, and she hosts the podcast Self-Made Expats, where expat entrepreneurs share their stories. Lucy, it's lovely to have another podcaster on the show. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks so much for having me, Carly. I'm super happy to be here. Such a huge fan of your podcast, so thrilled to be here.
That's lovely to hear. And your own podcast is called Self-Made Expats. Is that what you consider yourself to be?
That's a great question. Well, I aspire to be, absolutely. Well, just to share a brief background of myself. So I'm originally from South Korea. I was born and raised there. So I mean, since I was young, like I dreamed of living abroad and working abroad and grow my career internationally, working for like global companies and stuff like that. So that has been always my dreams. I kind of like always had this dream of like an expat life. So my first experience living abroad was like as an expat was Sweden. So when I was in uni, I got a chance, to study in Sweden for a year as an exchange student. So that really opened my eyes. I was like, oh my gosh, I really have to go abroad and find a job abroad. So after university, I got a job in Singapore. That's my like the first ever experience working as an expat in a different country. So started from Singapore, then I moved to Amsterdam in the Netherlands. Then, I moved to Canada in Toronto in 2018. So it's been about like 5+ years since I moved to Canada. But yeah, so yeah, on my podcast, I interview like expats from all around the world to share their stories to inspire aspiring expats and also expats, the current expats as well.
I'm curious, when you made that first move to Singapore, did you see it as a bit of a baby step because geographically it was kind of close
Oh,
by?
yes. It was actually a very strategic move for me. I knew that, my ultimate goal was to move to North America, either, United States, or Canada or Australia, maybe. So like those are the three countries that I had in mind. But then I'm an adventurous person. I like taking risks, but at the same time, I want to calculate the risk that I'm taking. So, oh my gosh, I can't move to like completely different culture just like right now. Let me just like do a baby step. So Singapore was obviously the first step, for me to just like expose myself in a different culture. Singapore is really good because I'm Asian, so like Singapore is still like Asian culture. However, it's super westernized and super diverse. So many like people from like different countries come there to work. It's a great expat community. So it was a good experience for me to kind of really like experience what expat life is.
My only experience of Singapore so far has been their famous airport, and I must, I must have been in the wrong terminal because everyone I spoke to was like, "Oh my God, you're going to
Yeah.
love Singapore Airport. It's amazing. It's so beautiful." I had 3 or 4 hours there. I did not
Anything.
see anything amazing or beautiful. And I'm like, did I just get the wrong terminal? Is this what the problem is? So I have to give Singapore another try and maybe actually leave the airport this time. But it has been 3 years since essentially remote working went mainstream, all because of that little C word.
Yes.
I'm curious, and like, yes, remote working remains a thing, but what job sectors are really thriving?
In terms of like sectors, a lot of people tend to think that like to be able to like really fully remotely from anywhere in the world, we have to work in tech. Like that's like a kind of like the perception that all of us has. Like even I had it as well when I was before 2020. But obviously, like in IT sector is the number one sector. Obviously, like engineers and developers and those sectors are definitely, the most popular in demand job sector. However, there are so many like marketing jobs as well. Like marketing again is huge umbrella, digital marketing, and also like, even like SEO and customer success, product marketing and also sales job as well. And a lot of people don't really know about is accounting and finance people are so huge, hugely in demand remotely. So there are like, in terms of sectors, I would say whatever, work and job function you're in, is highly, highly possible to find a remote job. It really depends on, the country. Certain countries are more willing to offer this remote work, policy. And also, yeah, so I would say like, that would be my answer.
It doesn't necessarily mean you need to go back to school or completely change your career to change your working life.
No, absolutely not. Actually, yeah, like a lot of people tend to think that way as well. But like, let's say, for example, just to give you a just like simple example, like I know that like, during pandemic, like a lot of teachers want to transition into like from teaching to a remote job, and healthcare workers as well. And also some retail workers. Remember like 2021, like all retail shops were closed, shut down. So what should I do
Yeah.
now? Right? I don't have a job, right? So all these things happen. Actually, it was like kind of like good for them as well now, because they now have the pause and have time to look back and reflect on their career. So is this career that's really for me, right? So I actually work with like a teacher as well. She was like wanting to transition from like 100% on-site teaching job to something like different, right? And then like, yeah, to answer your question, you don't really necessarily need to change, like study something new. Even if you want, yes, absolutely go ahead, but like just transition into like other industry and then getting a remote job, absolutely not. Like there are many positions out there that you can leverage your transferable skill sets from your previous and current job.
Now, I read news stories every few months about how the era of remote working is over. Employers, like the big ones, want employees back in the office. What's the reality with the people you're working with and the companies you're working with? Is that actually the case?
Yeah, another brilliant question. I mean, honestly, you asked so many great questions, and actually like thought-provoking questions. I'm thinking, okay, wow. Yes. So I will answer this way. There is no there's no right or wrong way to, in my opinion, to run business, right? Some companies, it makes more sense to them to kind of force their employees to go back to the office and 100% just like work on site. Maybe for some business models it works best for them, but others, like for example tech companies or more digitalized companies, they tried this remote work during pandemic, and now they see that, oh, it is possible, we can totally do that. Then like for those types of businesses, it makes sense for them to continue offering this remote work policy to their employees. So there's no right or wrong way of running business, but it just really depends on the product and their operating models, so to speak. But I saw the statistics actually. So in 2023, the I think it was Forbes article about like 40% employees are working either fully remotely or hybrid. So which means that 40% employees are at least working from home at least like once or 1 or 2 days a week, right? But then like, when you think about it, almost 60% of employees are actually working 100% on site at the office, right? So, but in my opinion, remote work is going to drive and it's going to be the future. Mainly because if it's a traditional like legacy company, like super huge big organization, if they say to the employees that, hey, you worked remotely before during pandemic, now you have to go back to the office, then employees really love this company so much, like, oh, this is a big organization, there are so many benefits, okay, let me just like sacrifice this is okay. But when you think about it, mid-sized organizations or small organizations, to attract high quality talent, giving them like the freedom to work remotely is hugely important, is a huge important factor. So for employers to retain high quality talent and also attract the high quality talent, they sort of, will be put in a situation where they kind of have to kind of adapt to this kind of new era, in my opinion.
It really is something that's become standard in a employee kind of benefits
Mm,
package now, isn't it? It's like, how many days do you expect me in the office and how many days can I remote work? And I think employees are more empowered these
yeah.
days and workers are more empowered to be like, well, if you're not going to give me the conditions that I want for my life, I'll look elsewhere.
Exactly. I saw that, like, again, like about like 60% of employees, like 57% workers, they actually, opt to, look for another job if their current employers don't give them, remote work, you know, this freedom. So it is true. Yeah, it is true.
I saw this very funny opinion piece in an Australian publication recently that was like, workers need to remember their place and employers need to enforce their authority more, and workers need to stop getting too big and think they have more
Oh
rights than they
gosh.
do. And I'm like, that's completely the wrong take, man. Like, I really want to speak about this notion of location independence because I think sometimes it can be used a little bit generally and people don't really think about the realities. And the reality is that not everyone in the world has the ability to achieve location independence. What are some factors that contribute to that?
Yeah. So my take is anyone who's looking to be location independent, there are so many different ways. Number one would be, finding a remote work as a full-time employee at a company that, offers a, fully remote this policy to you, right? That would be the number one way. And number two is, finding, actually, I have experience with this, which is, finding a contractor job or freelancer job at a company, right? So, but that company doesn't have to be fully remote company, right? But then, like, by just like leveraging your skills, for example, like for myself, like I've been in sales for the past 10 years, so I can use my business development sales skills. I can kind of like pitch companies with my skill set, so they don't, they are not necessarily looking for a full-time employee, but hey, let's give it a shot hiring someone as a contractor, hiring someone as a freelancer. Then I can be a location independent person, right? So I can work from Bali, I can work from, I don't know, Spain, while earning some income, right? I think income is a huge factor as well, right? How can I, be location independent while earning enough amount of income so I can sustain my life as well? And yeah, and then number three is like starting your own business as well. Obviously, that could be, another route for anybody to be location independent as well. So, but location independent is really cool, but at the same time, in my opinion, we really need to really ask ourselves, why do I want to be location independent? What's the reason? Is it because of the glamorized this beach life? Or, as I said earlier, there should be a concrete like reason why you want to be location independent. And then you can kind of like strategize your route from there.
I think part of that strategizing is realizing the
Mm,
limitations. For example, not everyone in the world can get a visa
exactly.
for anywhere in the
Mm,
world. There are tax rules. You actually need a tax residency and need to establish where that is that affects how long you
mm,
can stay in certain countries. And payroll rules. Some companies won't insure you to work for them from certain countries. They'll
mm,
say, well, actually, if you go and work from China and I employ you in the USA, you are not covered if something happens to you.
mm.
So therefore, we won't allow you to do that. So this is what I mean about, I think there's a romanticization about, is that a
Yeah,
word?
romanticize.
I think we I think we romanticize the idea of literally working from
Yeah.
anywhere without really thinking of the boring but essential administrative elements that go with it.
Yeah, I agree with you on that 100% because I think partly it's because of social media. It's like, because like one thing that I want to also like chime in here is that like last year I worked remotely in Bali. I traveled to Bali like a couple times before as well.
Did you do the swing? Did you do the
You know
Bali
what?
swing,
No.
with the
Shame on
beautiful
me.
flowy dress
No,
and
I did not.
I've seen that all over social
I
media.
know, I know, but I did it. But like, I visited, I traveled to Bali before, but like, but not like, went to Bali just working remotely, right? But like last year I went there to like working remotely and stuff like that. But actually, like it was good. But at the same time, working remotely doesn't mean that you're not working. Sometimes like you have to go out to the beach, you just enjoy the sun, but like sometimes a lot of days, I'm not gonna lie, a lot of days you're stuck in the room and just like working, right? So, and like I was surrounded with so many people who are just like working so hard. I was like, wow, actually the remote workers actually work harder than people from the office sometimes. So, yeah, I agree with you. Like we tend to romanticize the idea, of like this working from anywhere. So I think, yeah, and everyone's situation is very different. Like depending on where you're from, we really need to understand like visa, tax, insurance, all those kind of things as well. Yeah.
Lucy, in your opinion, do you need to be a certain type of personality to successfully remote work and remote work from anywhere? I mean, you spoke about being in Bali and no one's outside enjoying the sunshine. They're all working really hard, in their cafes, drinking their chai lattes and
I mean, yeah, I mean, it would be so nice just like hanging out, in the beach and, enjoy my chai latte. Well, the money's just coming into my
I
bank
mean,
account.
I've heard that actually working on your laptop from the beach is the worst thing, and the sun glare, and it's completely impractical. And where are you getting your
Hey,
Wi-Fi
I
at?
tried it. Okay, okay. So, like, as you said, like the photo of like swing thing, like before I go to Bali, you know what? I'm gonna bring my laptop to this Seminyak beach. I'm just gonna enjoy my margarita while, while working. I couldn't work because of the sun, so I couldn't even see my laptop. So, holy moly, this is not true. So I just enjoyed my margarita and just came back to the room.
Retreat to the villa. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, what was your question? I totally forgot about that. Sorry.
What sort of personality do you need to be? Like I know I really like a bit of structure.
Mm,
I like to be able to go away into my little office cave and work, and I would easily be distracted if I was
mm,
working from my kitchen or from a cafe. I'd think of a bazillion other things to do instead of what's in front of
mm,
me. So some people probably thrive more in a traditional office
yeah.
environment. How do you ensure that you are going to be able to thrive in a remote routine?
Yes. So if we are working for, like, it depends on like whether you're working for yourself and I guess like working for, an employer, I guess. So if anyone who's working for an employer looking for remote work and now you're questioning that, oh, am I suitable for this kind of location independent life as a employee, then the first skill set that I see from including myself and other people as well is number one skill would be adaptability. Right, the adaptable meaning like like going to the ball, like and being really realistic about that, and then whether you can really adapt to this new environment and new culture. Because what I've seen a lot is that some people are really eager to go, this is this Bali or whatever, this kind of place, without ever visiting to this place. But every place has pros and cons, and every place where we go there are problems, we have challenges. So whether you're adaptable to, whether you're willing to adapt to this new environment, new way of living, right? Like for example, when you live in Canada, when you live in the UK or France, there are certain things are very easy, right? Easy access. But like when you live in a place where there are beaches, where the local language, you don't speak their local language, there are a lot of like challenges and obstacles that you're going to face as well. So whether are you willing to adapt to this new environment and new culture as well? So adaptability is the number one skill that I would say. And also, if especially if you're working, if working for an employer, I've hearing that a lot as well. But like communication, whether you're able to communicate really well with your team members and stuff like that. So yeah, and self-motivating, obviously, because to speak for myself, like when I work remotely, I feel like, oh, I'm gonna be in Bali for a couple months, I'm gonna be in Thailand for a couple months, I need to experience this, this place, right? But then like I have this work to do, what should I do? I'm like juggling with time management. As you said, like structure, there's no structure if we don't set the structure and we are not disciplined. So I think being disciplined is highly important. to work remotely successfully.
A few years ago, my boyfriend and I went to Portugal for a
Mm.
week to working holiday, situation. And we really just had to time it and say, okay, let's start working a bit earlier in the morning. We'll go out for 1, 2 hours on our lunch break and do something touristy. And then as soon as, say, 3, 4 o'clock hits, we're out the door, we're walking the city, we're just, soaking up the fact that we're in another place. Because otherwise, you're just spending your working day in the apartment. You couldn't do
Yeah,
that at home,
exactly.
you know?
Exactly. We gotta experience this new life.
Yeah. In your experience, are there countries that are more conducive to working remotely from than others?
Yeah, definitely. Especially if anyone's looking for a fully remote job. United States, Canada are the number one countries. Like, they hire literally, they're very open to hiring, regardless of the industry, regardless of job functions. They're very open to hiring remote workers from anywhere in the world, right? There must be some restrictions on time zone differences, and like especially the United States, some because of the legal issues. If they want to hire full-time employee, then they of course like prioritize people from the US because the visa issues, right? But there are many companies and many positions where they hire someone as a contractor, and also there are companies that provide like EOR services as well. There are many different ways for companies hire remote workers. So USA and Canada, I would say the number one, and the next one in Europe, Netherlands and Germany, and also Sweden. All those countries, especially Sweden, Netherlands, those countries really highly value the work-life balance, and they realize that people are more productive by working from home and working like wherever they want, and working, especially working at a time when they feel the most productive, right? Because I believe like there are some people who are morning person, there are people who are night owl, right? So giving that kind of like flexibility and freedom to employees, they realize that, oh, this is actually more efficient and more productive. So those are the countries that I see that hire remote workers the highest.
And where do you find these remote jobs? Where are these companies listing these remote jobs, and what particular countries workers are they targeting for them?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, there are many like job boards out there that, but one thing that when you're looking, when anyone's looking for a remote job, one thing that need to be like really like look at very carefully is that whether they are looking for, there are many like, hey, this is a fully remote job, but you need to be based in the US. Or you need to be based in the UK or something like that. So make sure we need to make sure to find companies and jobs that actually really allows you to work from anywhere, meaning they're actually looking for candidates from candidates across the globe and without the time zone and stuff like that. So there are many job boards, but obviously I have my company, so HeyGlobally.com. So anyone who's looking for a remote job or international job, jobs abroad, definitely go HeyGlobally.com, and you can register for free and just submit your profile, and our team is going to potentially get matched your profile with the companies overseas that provide this international jobs or remote jobs. And also obviously there are many job boards like We Work Remotely and flexa.com, and then like there are many lists. I do have a free resource as well, so you can download the free resource where I list down like 10 most popular website that you can find remote job as well.
Lucy, you've worked with talents globally. What are some of the coolest places that you've known candidates to be working from?
Yeah, so working remotely from, yeah.
Yeah.
So one of my clients, she's working in Chiang Mai. I love Chiang Mai in Thailand, especially I think it's very good for women, and like especially like if anyone who's very interested in like wellness.
This is like a really famous remote
Yeah.
working blogger town,
Yeah,
isn't
yeah,
it? Yeah,
Chiang
I've heard of
Mai.
it
But
before.
it's like less like Bali is like very like nowadays Bali is very crowded, right? But like Chiang Mai is very like more zen and like I visited Chiang Mai, but like I heard like one of my clients, she's working in Chiang Mai, very happy because as a woman, like it's very like everyone's very friendly. You can go to yoga and wellness center and it's super like chill. And then another important thing is that, whether that place you're working from has a digital nomad community, right? Because like, you're working there alone or maybe with your colleagues or friends, but like you want to be surrounded yourself with, similar types of people, similar people, right? Who are also working remotely. So Chiang Mai, definitely, I heard that. And then one of my clients was working in Portugal. Portugal, Lisbon is like very popular place. So that place also has like a lot of huge digital nomad community as well. So as long as the place has, community, it seems like they adapt to this new kind of place easier.
Just finally, Lucy, I'd like to know what your top piece of advice would be for someone who's really keen to pursue a location independent career.
Yeah, that's a good question. So as I said earlier, I briefly mentioned earlier that like, there are many routes to be location independent, right? So you can be you can find a job at a company as a fully remote worker, uh, right? And also you can find a contract job and then, or you can start a new business if that's the one of the paths that you want to take in as well. And then, um, one thing that I want to definitely look into is that like we talked about it briefly before, but like in terms of like visa and then everything, how are you gonna go about it? Are you gonna apply for a digital nomad visa? Like for example, if you want to live in Portugal for a year as a digital nomad, how are you gonna go about it, right? If you are getting a remote work from a company in the US, they are usually as a contractor usually not sponsoring your visa, then how are you planning to live in Portugal legally for a year or so, right? So really like, yeah, like, knowing what direction you're going to and then reverse engineer, from there, right? So make a really like good strategy and plan accordingly.
Lucy, thank you for the conversation. It's been lovely to have you on the Expat Focus
Oh,
podcast.
thank you so much, Carly. I mean, like, you made me feel so comfortable while chatting. So I really enjoyed talking to you. Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
That's it for this episode. For a deeper dive into some of those boring but important bits that come with working from anywhere, check out my conversation with Oliver Heslop, where we talk tax tips for digital nomads. Simply scroll back on your favorite podcast app to find the episode. Head to expatfocus.com for loads of free resources to help you move abroad easily, and I'll catch you next time.